So, well, I'm super excited
I'm super excited.
because I got my homie here, and and before we even get started, first of all, I want to thank everybody who's joined. This is the Understanding a Man podcast, and just try to bring some topics to you to give you an opportunity of some enlightenment from a man's perspective of things that we think about. Definitely not meant in a misogynistic manner, because sometimes that could be a little borderline when we begin to talking a little bit. But I'm so excited because I have a guest this evening who I've had an opportunity of just walking in multiple capacities of, whether it's podcasts or whether it's just, even look, our one-on-one conversations, we can go for
Preach.
about an hour or two. And in addition to that, she's actually going to be featured on my upcoming Are We Ready Yet pre-marriage counseling course that's going to be out in just about another week or so. So you'll hear us talk about ancestral patterns. And so
Yes.
she just dropped some nuggets in that. So stay tuned for that. But I, from day one, the warmth that's come from her, the connections and the networking, and just overall, just great conversation from this person. So, and not only is she just amazing from just giving information on the relationship side, but then she's just got like this banging, everybody trees that be falling, like this the person who you're supposed to call. Okay. Cut that tree down, highlight her, but I'll let her talk about that. So I'm gonna get out the way just for a second and let her introduce herself. Miss Doni Jones, what's going on?
What's on? What's going on, man? I wish I could just bottle that and just kind of let that play in my ear. That was awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that introduction. But I gotta say the same thing for you. Every single time we get together,
Yes.
it's a moment, and it's like
Yes.
I love what you said about me, but at the same token, I feel that that's because you're overflowing yourself and you
Uh,
bring so much to the table. And so I'm so honored to get a chance to be on your show, to be on your platform, and to maybe share just a little
little
nugget of
nugget,
knowledge
just a
that might be
little
able to
one.
help people.
And,
My
and
whole goal in life is to be of service.
right.
So to somebody. So the fact that you're giving me this opportunity, I greatly appreciate it, and just appreciate what you are doing to bring clarity to relationships, because a lot of the stuff that you're talking about needs to be said, and
Yeah,
nobody's
and we're
really
gonna
saying it.
dive into one that they don't like to talk about
They
too
don't
often,
like to
Donnie.
talk
But
about it.
I before we do that, real quickly, where can people follow you? And and I know you got an amazing book,
Thank you.
and just different things that you're shaking and moving and doing. So can you give us the 30 second
I can give you
keyword?
the 30 second. In
Go ahead.
other words, he's saying that so I don't go long. But well, as Elam said, I'm Doni Jones. You can find me online anywhere. Doni Jones Live, Doni Jones Live, or DoniJonesLive.com. You can find me on Instagram at The Tree Lady, because as he said, I do own a tree care company in beautiful Atlanta, Georgia, and we are proud
Right,
to
right.
serve the underserved, meaning we serve our community. We serve everybody, but our heart is in our community. So that's a way you can connect with me. But the biggest thing is just to hook up with me on Instagram or Facebook at Doni Jones or Doni Jones Live. Check out my radio show and podcast. We're picking up some more cities, but the biggest thing for us right now is, hitting us up on YouTube and on iTunes and Spotify, just to continue to get this message out about entrepreneurship, self love, relationship, faith, spiritual healing, all of the above. So yeah, thank you.
But she about to be syndicated in a minute, y'all. Y'all stay tuned. Y'all
Hey.
don't even know who you listening to right now. You know what I'm
And
saying?
get my book From Failure to Fabulous.
Right. Please let them know.
Yeah, definitely From Failure to Fabulous. Right. And then after you get my book, go ahead and jump on over there and get Elam's book too. So
Thank you so much. Let's dive in really quickly to the. So here's the thing that I see, and I wanted to make sure I had this conversation with individuals such as yourself,
yeah,
because so sometimes when I go to weddings, right,
yeah.
I then when they start talking about the vows, right, and this is a universal thing that keeps happening. So I want to get your take on it. So when they start talking about, the men, okay, and
I already know where you're going, man.
and then and submission. And so when they start talking about the word submission,
Yeah.
right, I always hear in the audience, right, or the or smacking in the teeth or something like
Yeah.
that. And so,
Yeah.
I don't want to get too scriptural on it today, but I know that obviously it's something that's expressed in Ephesians with
Yeah.
regard to submission or whatever.
Right.
And I just want to say that I think that it is just an untapped area of strength
Yeah.
that is
It is.
not discussed because it's
Yeah.
more looked down upon,
Yeah.
and I see it more as a strength. And so with and speaking even just with you, and you've been married how long?
17. This year will be 18 years.
Okay, so this year is 18
But
years.
but
So
here's the key though, Elam. I'm not
yeah.
just married. I'm happily married.
Okay, come on, Happy.
Just saying. I'm
Come on.
happily married. And that doesn't mean that it's always perfect. And I actually appreciate the fact that you're asking me about this because there is an interesting dynamic with my marriage. I am an entrepreneur. I started a company. My husband came on board, helped me build it. I always say that, he was part of the backbone of this company. He was part of the foundation of this company. But I did start it. But the beautiful thing about my husband is that he didn't feel threatened or intimidated by the fact that I'm so driven.
Mhm.
In other words, he was like, "Okay, you be you. You're an amazing woman. I'm proud of you. I'm gonna be your biggest cheerleader, but that doesn't take away from who I am as a man." And that's one of the things. And he didn't try to compete with me. Like if I ever walk into a room and because of my personality or whatever, if I get a little bit of shine or a little bit of spotlight, he wasn't sitting there going, "She
Mhm.
thinks she is." You know what I mean? Well, I don't think a regular guy would be doing that anyway. But anyway, he
Hey, point of clarification. You said it doesn't take away from you who you are as a man. Let's just go and clarify. I might edit that out.
who I am as a woman.
Yeah,
Exactly.
no.
Let's clarify that. It doesn't take away from who I am as a woman. I am a woman. But the thing is, it doesn't take away from who he is as a man, And
Right.
so I appreciate that dynamic because a lot of times when women are successful and they are, driven and they are ambitious, they hear that word and think, oh, that means I've got to go be, you know, whatever,
Come on.
somebody's slave. And that's not the case whatsoever. I'll give you a small example. And I actually
Go
talk
ahead.
about this in my book. Not that's a shameless plug, but it's true.
No, no, plug it in, plug
I'm
it
mad at you.
in.
But what happened was, we went through a rough time in our business. And so there were times that I just didn't feel like doing things
Right,
because I was stressed
right,
and frustrated and wanted to figure out how we're going to turn things around in the company. Whereas my husband would come home and he could just let stuff go
right.
and, keep it moving. And I'm sure he was stressed, but he handled it differently. So when it came to our relationship, he still wanted to spend special time.
Mhm.
And I did not
Come
feel
on,
like
special. Come
special,
on, special.
special
Come on,
time.
come on,
And
special time.
so this went on for a while. And so as a couple, we had to have a talk because he was very patient. He's like, I know you don't feel like it. Okay, cool. I know you don't feel like it. Well, after so long of doing that, he's like, He goes, this is why I got married, so that I could have this type of a relationship and
Right,
spend time with you and be close to you and be intimate with you. And
right,
so I kind of, now granted the words were not that nice when coming
right.
on my end, having this
Real.
conversation.
No, that's real. That's real.
But I said, how the heck can you feel like doing that right now when we got trucks being repossessed or I got a car or I got equipment and we got invoices out? How can you even feel like that when we got debt? And he's like,
Mhm.
you know what, honey, that has nothing to do with how I feel
Right,
in this moment. He goes, I'm not even thinking about that. He goes, when we get a chance to be intimate, that makes me feel good. And it
right.
gives me the energy and the strength to go another day. And it
Mm.
makes me feel close to you.
I, I, I,
Because
I,
right now I don't feel close to you because you're just bundled up. And it changed my perspective. I didn't feel like I'm being submissive. I felt like, okay, it makes him feel good, which then in turn makes me feel good. You know what I
so
mean?
yeah, absolutely. So let's just look at this holistically, because I don't want it to be of that level of, because I don't want people to go left with it, because I know where you're going with that particular. Well, I feel like I know where you're going with that particular portion, but the submission just as a whole, sometimes it might be, physical intimacy.
Right.
It could
But
be.
that was just one example.
Yes, exactly,
Right.
exactly, of just different ways. And so, when you're having girl talk, right,
Right.
and this word comes up about submission, what are you hearing, and or what's the pushback? Why is it? I know you said that you made the comment about that it might look like that it's got to be something that you just said earlier.
Okay. Well, I think a
As
lot
if
of people
it's
when they hear the
subpar,
word
as if it's a
submission,
bad thing.
right? Like it's a and Elam, let's be serious. It can be a bad thing if it's not the
Absolutely.
right environment. I will say this, and I know I'll get some amens on this. The gentleman has to be worthy
Come on.
of
I
that.
agree. I agree.
He's
I
got
agree.
to be someone that has earned that, your heart, your mind, your body, your spirit, in order for you even to want to submit in that way.
But if you're
But
married,
yeah,
that's your husband. So he's really, didn't he already
no,
earn you?
no. There's
Okay.
there's a whole lot
Okay.
of people that are together, and just because a piece of paper says they're married, they're not actually married, mind, body, and spirit.
Okay.
My mom and my dad were married, but it was not an ideal situation. And his idea of submission, my dad's idea with submission was my mom didn't talk back, and if she did, he beat her, and that she had to have food on the table when he got home because he was the man of the house. No,
Mm.
that's not
Right.
what we're.
Right.
And
Right. Now we're not talking about
no, we're
that.
not talking about that, but we also have to go back to what the history of quote unquote traditional marriage is. People thinks it started at the Bible, quote unquote, but it started as a way to control women. It
Okay.
started as women being a piece of property. So that terminology had to evolve with the times and realize, hey, we don't belong to anybody. I don't, we are not somebody's property. So once we can set that aside and
Right.
say that, if you're married, that doesn't mean you're this man's property or this woman's property, but how can we work together? Submission for me sometimes is, for example, I've talked about being more driven, and there's certain things that drive me nuts um in my marriage, but then there's other things that drive me nuts and I just choose not to say something. I used to have a very fiery mouth when we first got married. Actually, I had a fiery mouth on and off over the years, but I learned that when I say certain things out of context, when I say certain things that are hurtful and harmful, it destroys the atmosphere in the home.
Right.
It doesn't make me feel good, and it doesn't make
Right.
him feel good. So for me, sometimes submission is just, I don't want to say anything because it just isn't going to help the situation, isn't going to help the cause. Now that doesn't mean that I throw everything out the door. What it means is, okay, I think about it and I go, let me revisit this after I calm down.
Okay.
Let
And
me
see,
let him
even
get
that
something.
part right there, that's huge. How did
Yeah,
you, where did that happen? I'm
yeah,
sorry, you going somewhere.
yeah.
Sorry.
Let me talk about this after I calm down. How about this? Let me talk about this after he gets home, takes
Right.
his boots off, gets something to eat, and is in a different headspace.
Right.
I think I've
That's
talked about
wisdom
this
right there.
on you and I've talked about this before. My husband used to come in and say, I would just start tackling him with all kinds of stuff. And he's like, could you let me land first? In other words, that meant like, let me get in the house, let me get settled, let me get into a headspace where I can hear you. Once again, that doesn't mean that it's perfect, but I'm always constantly working on myself because I want to be the type of wife that, I you use the word submission, but I want to say work with my husband to make a more beautiful and healthy relationship. So if
So
that means I'm submitting to my own anger, I'm being a submission to my own, you know, crazy ideas about stuff that we should do that maybe we shouldn't do or I need to think
right.
through.
Right.
That's what I mean. It's more submission to myself to have to be right. I don't have to be right. And I went through a long phase in my relationship where I felt like I always had to be right. And I don't. I don't always have to be right.
Let me
But I do feel like I need to be heard.
let me throw this in there because I want to stamp out because somebody might have heard this. So I want to bring some clarification to what you said earlier.
Okay.
You said that he, is submitting to someone somewhere along the line that has earned it, right? And
Yes.
so, if you had, so in your mind, when a person is married, when you say, what does that mean when you're talking about that he's earned it? Because does that mean that, okay, no, pop off and just do whatever because he has is not making a certain amount of money, or he's not
No,
hitting in a certain way, or because he's not a certain type of dad? What does that look like? You know what I'm saying? Like, what does that look like? What does earned look like? And the reason why I say that because
Why you gonna put me on the spot, man? Why you?
No. I want because somebody's gonna take that and run. Like, oh, you haven't earned it. Okay, well, yes, you made a dumb move yesterday, Michael. Okay,
Yes.
so does that mean today she can just pop off? I mean, what does that look like?
No. Okay. I guess whenever I think about Morgan, I always think he takes care of my heart. That's what I mean. Like, he doesn't give me cause to think that he's out there in the streets doing something he ain't supposed to be doing.
Okay.
He works hard to support what my dreams, my aspirations. Um, if I'm having a rough day, he's my pillow. He's my landing spot. He's a lot of times the common sense when I'm all over the place. And he just makes me feel emotionally taken care of. If that makes sense.
So should a man ask the woman, how do I earn your
Yeah,
submission?
I would, because we had those conversations.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And
I think that's good.
So if you just said that, he's your pillow and, gives you that security from him not being in the street or whatever.
Right.
So let's just say he falters in one of those areas.
Yeah.
Now you can just pop off tomorrow.
No.
What does that look like? No, and I'm not being funny.
But here's the thing, though. But no, in real reality, there have been times that I pop off, but because the relationship is there, I go, ooh, did I really need to say that?
Okay, so it's kind of like.
So once again, going back to that, am I submitting to him or am I submitting to my own desire to be right?
Okay. And I wanted to. I think that's probably important. Maybe for some people who are in a space right now that that this is the interpersonal communication that's going on inside of the marriage, that maybe somebody might be popping off and somebody might not be earning, right?
Right, exactly.
So just to use that terminology. So is it that maybe they should just sit down and have a conversation? Because thinking that you're not giving me the respect that I need, and she's just thinking, well, you haven't earned it yet. Should somebody just sit down and have a something crazy like? And I always say that because I say the marriage is the biggest business, emotional, and financial situation that you're ever going to be in.
Think about this, Elam. What if we ran our businesses the way we ran our marriages?
That's where I was going with it. To whereas if things aren't working out, you sit down and have a conversation, and you might have to have another conversation and another conversation. I mean, you've only signed up for forever, right? Yeah. It's forever. So you might have to move this in stages, just like in business meetings. Maybe you meet from 1 to 2, and then tomorrow you meet from 1 to 2, and the next day you meet from 1 to. You do it at work.
Yeah. That's
absolutely. So should they just sit down and have that conversation? He's feeling like he's not being respected. She's feeling like, well, you ain't earned it. Should somebody just sit down? Is it as simple as sitting down and having a conversation?
I think a lot of times it is.
Okay.
I know. I
can agree with that.
Simplistic. But it really, how many people go, you know what? I mean, think about, because you coach people and you do therapy and stuff. Mm-hmm. How many couples before they come to meet you say that, you know what, I was really wrong the other day, and he came to me and said that he was really wrong with the way he expressed himself. In other words, he meant what he said, but the way he said it was wrong. Right. And before we even met you, we just decided to go, wake up Sunday morning before the kids got up and just talk. Right. We decided to do. How many people are actually doing that?
That would be very few. And it's one of the things that I talk about so much, because when we're thinking about intimacy, right, most of the time people think about the physical aspect, right? But there's actually 5 different levels of intimacy.
Yes, it is.
Intellectual, experiential, spiritual, and I think I hit all of them, right? And then there's physical as well. So there is a emotional intimacy that you have to have, and that's actually those moments of sitting down and having these types of conversations,
right?
To see whether we can come to some common ground versus just sitting and thinking that it's just going to magically, deliciously just fall in line. That's just not going to happen.
And also picking your battles.
Okay, talk about that.
Well, there's some stuff that I'm like, in my mind, I'm 100%. In my mind, I'm 100% right, but is it necessary right now? And then there's other stuff I'm like, I'm 100% right, and we need to have this conversation right now as we speak. One thing I have learned in this journey, though, when it comes to making a person change, you cannot make them change.
Say that one more time, because I think the people in the back, the sitting in the, they need to hear that one right there.
When it comes to making a person change, you cannot make them change.
And coming from a woman, that means so much, because a lot of times women marry men for who they think that he can be, and men marry women for who and I'm gonna say some, not all, but marry women for so some women marry men for who they can be, and some men marry women for who they are. So if Miss Lady, he's not where you want him to be, right? You're trying to change him. So talk about that, your wisdom of
Oh,
walking
you're
through
getting
that
ready
with
to make my
Lady.
heart hurt, because this brings up something that actually, it's happened several times over the years, but it just gets clearer and clearer to me.
Right.
You know how I mentioned that my husband's a major support system and he helps me tremendously. When we were going through our tough stuff with the company and stuff and the money and stuff like that, and I went through this phase where I was like, it's all on my shoulders. It's all on me. The ideas, the marketing, da 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 da. Now, granted, he's out there making it happen. He's out there making sure the trucks are where they're supposed to be, working with the crews and stuff. So he's doing a huge part of the industry that I don't do. Like, he makes stuff happen that I don't even know. He works magic. Okay.
Right.
But the businessy side of it, I just felt like that's on my shoulders, is on my shoulder. Right. So I wanted him to pick up the ball and help me with some of that stuff, like the, moving and grooving, talking with people, sales, marketing. That's not his skill set. And I knew that the day I married him. I knew that when we started dating. I knew that he's very logical. He's very, he's detail oriented, and he's systems oriented, not so much people oriented, right? So I would go every few years, I'd go through this crazy stage where I'd be like, you need to help me with sales and marketing. And now I've got to figure out this social media stuff. Right. Now, the problem I was having is that I was not believing what he was already telling me. He told me that was not his interest. He told me that was not what he wanted to do. He was very clear, but I didn't want to hear it, because I kept thinking, if I love you enough, you're going to do these things. Right. If I just keep telling you and nagging at you about it, no, I remember one time, and I'll try to bring it back to what we were talking about. A lot of women want their husband or their partner to be somebody that they're not. And they walk around in frustration, as opposed to helping them become, a person only has to help themselves, but helping them become better of who they already are, as opposed to trying to make them somebody else. What does that look like?
Right.
I have talked about having all these big goals and aspirations. And I've talked about how my husband is right there by my side. We're building this together. We went through a phase where all the crazy stuff was happening, and I got upset. And I said, I feel like all this stuff is on my shoulders, and that if I died right now, you would let all this stuff go. And, big house, cars, fancy trips, whatever, stuff. And then you'd move the girls to like a little house on a hill with a little garden in the background or something like that.
Come on, garden.
And he goes, exactly.
Like,
he goes, we do all of this stuff because this is what you want. Ooh. And I want to support you in your dreams, but this is not what it goes. I'm happy with you. I'm happy with the girls. Ooh. This is all the stuff you wanted. He's been telling me that for years. So I had to step back and go, I keep trying to force him to be somebody he doesn't want to be. So I stopped arguing with that. Stop fighting with that. I found a social media person to help me with social media. Got a person that helps me with production. If I do, he's great with cameras and photography, so he'll do photography and stuff like that because he has an interest in photography. But you know what else he will do? When there's something going on with them trucks, he's there. When there's something going on with the crews, he's there. When there's something technical, he's there. He does stuff I don't even know he's doing.
So what was the level of submission? It was like a logical, intellectual moment where you're just like, okay.
I let it go.
Right. Okay.
I didn't have to. I realized.
And how did you do that? Because a lot of people don't know. How did you do that?
I do think that you have to get to a point where you get frustrated with your own frustration. And you have to go, why am I doing this to myself? And also, there's Oprah said that Maya Angelou told her this, and it lives in my head forever. When people show you who they are, believe them.
Right.
My husband has always been a kind, loving, loyal, simple man that doesn't need fancy stuff, could care less what a label is. He's the same guy that wore,
I like
brown
him.
shorts with white socks.
I like him.
You know what I mean? And then I was like, you can't wear that anymore. We gotta, you know what I mean? But you know what? He's a loving father. He's an amazing husband. And he has, once again, supported me in everything because trying to make him somebody. That doesn't mean I don't drop the ball sometimes and talk about leadership more and talk about, being more assertive and stuff like that. But when I let him shine where he shines, he rises way above anything that I can expect.
So just to make sure, because I want to transition this for a second, because it's kind of like you are the back end, meaning that you're married and you're walking in submission, and you still out here shaking and moving and doing your
absolutely
thing.
And that's why I want to have this conversation.
And so it doesn't like you're subservient and under his feet or whatever, but there's some things that you had to walk inside of yourself. And so that's the back end, because that kind of transitions over. And I know we were kind of talking about this earlier, with regard to on the front end in the dating space, right? You have the submission that has to be learned and walked in beforehand, of just the mentality of partnering with somebody, right? And learning how to. A friend of mine said this when I had a panel discussion about 2 years ago. He was just like, we're the head of the household, but we're led by the people who we serve. So that's actually the submission that a man actually walks in and like, yeah, I know technically, okay, the man head of household or whatever, but I'm led by watching, looking at what, like your husband said, hey, listen, I really ain't want to do some of this, but this is what you want to do, so we're gonna rock and roll with whatever. That's really what happened, right? He the head, but he like, but you really were running the show, and that's the reason why it is a skill set.
It's a skill
for a woman to understand that the submission is actually a power. Right. And so, and then there's also a side where men have to look at certain areas of submission as well. We're submitting before God and things of that nature.
Right.
And so, we're loving you. So we're like, okay, she want to rock with this. Okay. But I want to, let's normalize submission and not looking at it in the manner of it's so subservient.
Right.
And there's a level of weakness in it, because on the front end, in the dating perspective, right, you have some women that are just they're trying, they want to be with somebody. This is for the people who want to be with somebody.
They want to be with somebody,
right? Want to be with someone, but you walk around with Miss Independent and all that, and we just be like, no, like that's no.
But they don't understand it in a traditional. In every like, you know me, I support all communities, but in a traditional relationship like what we're talking about, men actually like taking care of women. They like being respected and looked up to. They like doing and being kind. They like, but if you're that, oh, you can't do nothing for me, you can't open a door for me, you can't do, they don't even know where to stand.
And some want you to open the door and pay for the meal, and they want that conservative portion of, the securities and all this and that. But then you want to go overboard from a communication perspective,
right?
And as if you don't need me, as if
I'm
a resource or whatever. And so talk about that. Like, if you had to talk to the front end in the dating space, can you talk to the ladies with regard to just developing through that?
I guess for me, it's like I want it to be, even though I'm a strong independent, so-called independent, because I'm not really independent, I'm interdependent. I don't do any of this stuff by myself. I'm interdependent. Even though I have a strong personality and I'm outgoing and stuff, I had to
chapter 2 in
myself.
The book of Understanding a Man. It's interdependent. I'm going to do this small commercial break. You will see chapter 2 as Miss Independent or Miss Interdependent. You said
it's interdependent. And get that book, y'all. The man is preaching. But for example, I was hearing in society, I'm supposed to be this and I don't need nobody. And I'm going to go a woman, be all you can be and all this kind of stuff. In fact, one of my mom's favorite songs was Native New Yorker. For those of you who are older, that's a whole nother story. But it just drilled in my head to go be independent, to go be somebody. But I wanted somebody to want me. I wanted to be in a relationship, and I had to open up the space for somebody to feel. Like, if you don't open up the space can't get filled. If you're doing everything, don't need nobody, why would somebody, what are they?
Come on.
What do
I
they
mean,
need
please,
to hear?
I please say that again, because I think that people in
You
the back
have to
need to
open.
hear
If you
that.
want somebody to be in that space, you need to open up that space.
Come on.
You want somebody to help you, be there for you and be supportive and stuff like that. You have to open up that space.
How? Because some people don't understand that. How do they open up that space in the dating phase? How do? They're not married, so they don't.
Right.
They're not. From those.
Well, I think one of it is, you get ready to take
I'm
a turn.
sparking you today.
Okay.
I'm sparking you
Just
today.
because you were in a jacked up relationship with somebody else,
Right,
doesn't mean that the next person is going to be jacked up. So the first thing is, you got to let your defenses down. You have to. In order to let somebody in, you're going to let their defense. Now, that doesn't mean you be stupid.
Yeah, because I don't want to be hurt again.
I don't want to be hurt. But that's how they get hurt again. Because when you put your defenses up, guess what? That also means that your energy, your subconscious mind, your intuition, your gut is not working because you got this wall up. So you're just going to cut everything out.
Right.
So then you wind up back in stupid situations. But going back into the dating scene, I had to open my heart up and go, you know what? I'm going to be vulnerable in this situation. But I was vulnerable to somebody that was willing to talk to me. I was vulnerable to somebody that I saw just by the way he treated other people, by the kindness he exuded, that he wasn't going to harm me. He wasn't going to try to harm me. You know what I mean?
It was the communication.
It's the communication. And so I think we skip over all these little things in order to get to the big thing and don't realize that little things add up to the big thing. So going back to the dating scene, the fact that he wanted to, and we were like dead broke when we were dating, dead broke. Okay.
Right. Money was
so we would go to Waffle House, and I could, now some people don't agree with this. I could take her to Waffle House.
Come on.
But he came out with his little $10, $15. I let him do it.
Come on, egg and cheese.
You know what I mean? Now, next time I might do it. So it's not all about the Benzes and the bling and stuff like that. But it made him feel good. He said he was taking me out. Guess what? He took me out. We going to Waffle House. He took care of the Waffle House. He opened the door for me. I didn't be like, listen, I'm a businesswoman. I'm independent. I don't need you to open a door for me. What's wrong? If somebody wants to take care of you and help you, let them in those little things.
I was at an event one time. I will never forget this. And it was a lady that, she's shaking and moving, doing her thing. And so she was doing something. And for the moment, she was trying to put something together. And so I'm seeing her there. She's holding a plate. Right. Yes. And so, I inherently, I'm like, you're doing something over here and you have a plate in your hand. You probably want to have both of your hands. Here, let me help you. This all went real fast in my head. And so I grabbed the plate and I was just like, I'll hold that for you. While she was like, I don't need you to hold my plate. And I was like, oh, okay. Keep in mind, she's still single today. But wants to be in a relationship. You know what I'm saying?
But let's take it to friendships.
Something a little small like that. Like, I'm actually...
But let's take it to friendships. Let's even take relations, because it will relate to friendships. If you see a friend that is struggling, okay, right, and it's something that you can help them with. It's not anything crazy, but just something that that I can help you with this. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you offer your help to that friend that clearly needs your help, or they may not necessarily have to have it, but it would be helpful. Right. How do you feel when that person shuts you down? As if your help isn't even valued.
Yeah, there you go. And that's what, in that moment, I was just like, ooh, and I'm just a friend.
You're just a friend.
And we people. So it's not like exactly. I'm like just anybody trying to grab your plate.
Absolutely.
We peoples to the point where just exactly. like me and you. If I like, oh wait, Doni, you need me to hold that plate real quick? So it was like one of those moments, but right. You single, right?
That's right.
So I'm just like, if you doing just a little old friend like that, like, dang, I don't need you to hold my plate. Oh,
What do you do in relationships? But that goes back to
hello.
today. I was at a client's house, and she's an amazing woman, very, very accomplished woman. She's in her 60s, maybe late 60s, early 70s. And I didn't know at the time when I met her that she had cancer. And then she revealed that to me. And she got to talking, and she goes, Donna, you know what? And she was still attractive. Like in her late 60s, she was still attractive. She goes, and I don't know why she started talking to me, but the fact that we're having this conversation now, I think it relates to this. She's like, Donnie, I made a lot of stupid mistakes in my life. She goes, I was the it girl in this community. She lives in a nice community. She goes, in this community, on my job, in this neighborhood, I was the it girl.
Right.
Very attractive. I had it all, money. I didn't need a man. I didn't need a partner. I didn't need anybody. I was independent. I could do it all by myself. She goes, I made a huge mistake. She goes, I do need people. And she goes, and now I'm at a point in my life, I don't know how to reach out to people.
Oh.
And I don't even know if they would reach back out to me if I reached out to them. And I was like, well, what do you mean? She goes, I have cancer and I'm just not able to do things that I used to be able to do. And you know what? It would be nice, even if it was just a guy friend that would come over and cut the grass, or just a friend, just anybody that would come help me. But I was so busy trying to be Miss Independent.
You shut them all out.
That's what she said. I shut people out. She goes, and I didn't nurture relationships because I was so busy trying to be a boss.
Ooh.
And she used
Come on, speak to them. I want to
use a much more colorful word, but she
no, because I want to speak to the boss ladies. I want to speak to. I love the empowerment of the Black girl magic. I love the empowerment of.
And she believes in all of that. Women. She says we need each other.
Yes, of the.
We need our men. We need our women. We need our friends.
But wait, just of that piece, because of the needing of it. If you had to speak to, just the empowerment movement and being great, but simultaneously lest you forget. I mean, those that desire to be in a relationship. For those that don't, this ain't.
If they don't, and Elam, that's an important point to make. What you just made was important. If you honestly are one of those people that don't really care about being in a relationship, this conversation ain't for you.
It's not.
It's just not.
Click the pause. Go to the next podcast.
Go to the next one. Exactly. Right. And it goes back to what Oprah was saying and Maya Angelou said. When somebody shows you who they are, believe them. So if you are telling me you don't want a relationship, you don't want people in your life, you could care less about a man, you don't care, whatever, you ain't got.
Right.
Okay. Me, on the other hand, I've joked about being, I'm an assertive, outgoing woman that loves being a boss, but I love and need my husband, and I want my husband.
So how do you tell the bosses? Tell the bosses what are the points that they need to think about in their boss stage of singlehood to develop, because it's a development. You don't just get married tomorrow and you're just, have that level of wisdom and submission and things of that nature. What should they, how should they be grooming themselves right now?
Well, I'm a big believer in mentors, and mentors don't have to be somebody you know personally, because a lot of us don't know happily married people. But I would encourage them to watch other women that are powerful and successful, that are happily married, that do have great relationships.
I like that.
Whether it's YouTube, Instagram, that's a whole hot mess sometimes. But anyway, find people that are happily married, find people that have good relationships, and ask them how they did it. Another thing is in business, you do have to have a certain level of go get it and everything, but also people are understanding in leadership, there also has to be a certain level of vulnerability to successfully succeed and build a team that is cohesive. I believe the same thing has to happen in your relationships. If you meet somebody, be vulnerable and let them know what you actually want. One of my favorite things, one of the things I tell my kids is just be honest about your feelings when you're in a tough situation with somebody. So you might be going into a friendship, right? And it hasn't quite turned into a dating situation, but you see it going there.
Right.
Say, listen, you know what? I'm vibing you vibing me. And this thing feels good, but I'm being real with you. I have been hurt before, and I don't want to bring that kind of energy to you.
Right.
What do you want in a relationship?
And I like that because
I want a relationship. This is what I want, but I want to know what you want. But we don't even get to what they want. We always get to, and then I wanted this, and he got to be that, and he got to be this, and stuff like that. Well, you may not even be in the right the right setup for
And
yourself.
I love that word of the setup because you have to give the person, I always say, you have an opportunity of them signing up
Yeah.
for you and your non-negotiables and what
Yes.
direction you want to go in. And then you also have to sign up for them. So that means you have
Yes.
to get what they're looking for. It's beyond just, the sex or give them some good head or something like it's so far beyond that.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, you want to know also on their side
What do they want?
while you are simultaneously letting them
Yeah.
know that vulnerability on your
Yeah.
side as well.
Well, going back, and I know we keep bringing my relationship, but I've always loved kids.
Uh-huh.
But my husband was honest with me. He did not want a whole lot of kids. I could have had 10 kids. I like 5 kids, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a choice
Mm-hmm.
to be with him, but I said, I want kids. I was like, this is not gonna work if you don't want any kids. And so he
And
said,
that's
I'll take
good.
one.
That's your non-negotiable.
Exactly. He's like, I'll take one. Not because I came from a big family that was extremely dysfunctional.
Right, right, right.
Extremely. I was like, you know what? Maybe one. Now I ain't gonna lie, part of the back of my head, I was like, if I get one, I'll probably get two. But I left it alone. But in
Yeah.
my mind, I can honestly say I thought about it. I was like, okay, we'll start with one. If he's okay with that, I love him so much, I would be okay with that. You know what I mean? And
Right.
then after we had my first one,
Was
we
that
had the
good?
first one, and we were like hanging out, and she was about 17, 18 months. And he was like, "You still want more than one kid?" I was like, "Yeah, I really do. I really do."
I
3
love.
weeks later, I tinkled on the little stick, and it
Mhm.
was
But even that level
baby
of.
number 2.
So when you're talking about the mentorship and being vulnerable as well, so those are two amazing, great points. Any other points with regard to in your singlehood of just
Yes.
that vulnerability? I definitely like that, and that gives them an opportunity of knowing you and you
I
knowing them.
think you got to be vulnerable, but also you have to believe your eyes and your ears.
Okay,
You have
all
to.
right,
So a lot of times we start trying to build a foundation on sand instead of on bricks. If somebody shows you they not a brick, don't keep trying to make a sand into brick. And I know that you can pour some concrete in there, and I know you can mix it up, but that's not your job. Your job is to get a brick that you can build upon. If they're going to become a brick, they need to do that themselves. They need to mix the sand up. They need to become whoever it is they're supposed to be. But a lot of time women are trying to make men into something that they're not. And then they get upset, and they're just like, I'm not getting what I need. Well, if he's emotionally distant in the beginning, I truly believe, unless there's some therapy and there's some real openness to change, he's going to be emotionally distant, you
so it
know.
sounds like that the important act when you're in your singlehood is when you're looking at submission, submitting to a mentor, submitting to being vulnerable, but then
Yes.
also submitting to yourself, to
Yes.
knowing having your
That's what I was trying to say.
self-awareness to
Yes.
know that, okay, even though his teeth might look like this, or maybe he might hit it like this, or maybe his money might look like this is not the person that I
It's
probably
not.
want to be with. So I need to submit, fall back and be like, you know what? You're somebody else's blessing. And I
Yeah.
think that level of submission, submitting to yourself first and
Admitting
foremost,
to
to be able to
self.
do that, that
Yes.
allows you in your marriage down the road
Yes.
to submit to the authority or just the person or just
Yes.
the marriage, the entity as a whole. So I think in your singlehood, you have to submit to yourself of knowing who you
Yes.
are.
Yeah. And also to the relationship. My
Uh,
relationship is more important than me being right, even though sometimes my actions say different because I can be a little mouthy, but I've gotten better with that.
right,
You know, there's some stuff I just don't push anymore, not because I'm a wimp, not because I don't care, but because my husband has put a lot of time and energy into helping us build this life. And there's just some stuff that is not as important to me as it used to be
right,
because I've gotten so much more just from being his partner, just
right,
from being his friend.
right,
I was thinking about it the other day, and I literally just was watching my girls and the way they interact with each other and
right.
the way they interact with their dad. They were in the kitchen, and my husband was cooking something, and the daughter was sitting on the counter. Sitting at the table doing some homework, and they were
Right.
joking with one another. And my oldest was standing there watching her dad. And I was like, it was just a moment. I was like, I am so thankful
Right.
that I stopped always trying to be right. I'm so thankful
Mm.
that, because you know, as women, we can crush somebody's spirit. And
Ooh.
I've come very close to that with my mouth. And I'm so glad that, first of all, my husband allowed me to have the space to get better in certain things, as opposed to going,
That's
this
important
ain't what
because
I signed up for.
and
You
you
need to
need
go.
to
You know what I mean? I'm leaving. I'm out of here.
get some
So
breaks. Right.
I had the room to grow, but I wanted to grow and submit to myself so that I didn't have to have so much, so much negativity in our relationship. So once again, going back to what you said, I think it's more about submitting to yourself, which in turn
Right.
makes you quote unquote submit. But it's not the submission like what you hear about, in my opinion,
Uh-huh.
Bible, where we're talking about women as property. I am so not for that
I
definition,
understand that. I can agree
not
with
for
that.
that. And I think that's why I think it's so important that you're doing this show, because that's what people think of. I think in a
I agree.
relationship, you have
I
to
agree.
submit to each other and build each other up at the same
Right.
time.
Right.
I don't have to always be right. You know what I mean? But it doesn't mean I'm always wrong either.
Yeah, there's submission in communication. There's
Yeah.
submission in, just intellectually of directions
Right.
where people want to go in. There's submission from a spirituality
Right.
perspective. There's
Right.
submission in, you know what, I'm having a bad day, but let me check on you. So it's submission in, and from an emotional
Right.
perspective, and that's where I like to say that intimacy. One of the biggest
Yeah.
pieces of that is into me. You see, you have to see into
Ooh,
the
that's
other person,
good.
okay, and then allow them to see into you. And
Yeah.
that submission that we were just talking about, of the self-awareness, submitting to yourself to say, I'm not feeling good, so I
Yeah.
need to be submissive to myself, to be
Yes.
like, you know what, I need to be vulnerable, like you said
Yes.
earlier, and just express to you, listen, I'm feeling some type of way, and so, it really might not be you, or
Right.
maybe I need something from you,
Yes.
and be able to humbly say it versus playing Blues Clues and thinking the person's
Exactly.
just going to figure it out by
Exactly.
themselves because you walking around with a puss on your face. You know what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't work.
Right.
We have to submit to ourselves and have that level of vulnerability and that
Yes.
level of
Yes.
communication.
Yes.
So yes.
Well, something just popped in my head while you were talking, and this comes back to communicating again and understanding what words mean. My dad used to always use that word submit, and my dad was very abusive,
Right.
extremely abusive.
Right.
There's a lot of women in our community that have come from abusive situations, whether from a dad, an uncle, a
Right.
brother, and they've had to fight to be who they are right now.
Right.
So when a preacher, a pastor, or a friend, or whoever gets up on a stage or gets on a platform and talks about submission, the submission that's coming out of your mouth is not what's being heard.
Right.
So when I hear that word, or when I used to hear that word, all I thought about was my dad beating us.
Right.
All I thought about was an abusive relationship. All I thought about was, even on days when there wasn't abuse, she had to make sure dinner was on the table by a certain time, because guess what? Daddy's coming home.
Right.
She couldn't have her own career. She
Right.
couldn't go out and be with her friends the way she wanted to,
Right.
because she was submitting to her husband. And I think the reason why women have a problem with that word is the same reason why I would have a problem with that word in that context, because the word submission in the English language, as far as we are concerned, stems from slavery. It doesn't stem from your traditional meaning, quote unquote, in the Bible. And even if it did, back then it meant women as property. But as people of color, that word meant submit to your master.
Mm-hmm.
And the slave master used to use that. So subconsciously, it's a trigger for us. And when you
Okay.
think about women in society that have worked their butts off to get an education, to build a career, to
Right.
build a beautiful life, many of them already own their own homes. And you go, you got to submit. Guess what they hear? You trying to take my stuff away. You're trying to take my power away. You're trying to get
Uh,
me to bow down to you as if you were my slave master. I know that's not what you're saying, but that's what's being heard. And
mm,
there's a lot of women that have worked their butts off to be who they are, to overcome challenges, to overcome emotional, mental, and sexual abuse. And then you turn around talking about a relationship and this is how we want to be. And then, we're going to try to submit so you can understand what it really means. They hear what you're saying, but they're not really hearing what you're saying. They're hearing, submit. Okay, I'm good. Nope, I'm out of here. You see what I
uh,
mean?
Yeah, and I guess that goes to the presentation of it, but then there's also just I think that one of the things, and first of all, Donnie, I just want to thank you so much for just coming on and just speaking towards this topic. We're going to evolve through this. This
Yeah.
is not going to be our first conversation about it, but I'm speaking with individuals like yourself of just bringing the knowledge
Yes.
of maybe some of the tough, unsexy portions that might happen to
Exactly.
exist inside of a marriage, and then also building upon that really in the single space to how you
Yes.
get there, because you don't just go, it doesn't go black and then
No.
black white. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? It's not, night day. It's not,
Yes.
it's a transition that
Yes.
starts inside of your singlehood, boss lady.
Yeah.
Okay. To whereas, then you can still be the boss lady
Yes.
inside of your marriage as well,
Yes.
with them being but soar at that point,
Right.
not crash and burn, because
Yes.
now you're intertwined and you are, as you said earlier, interdependent.
Enter.
Whether you want to say it
What
or
chapter was that again?
yeah, that was chapter 2. So
There you go.
chapter
But
2 was
Elam, I want
inspiration.
you to expound on that because I just it just hit me while you were talking
Uh-huh.
that that's what women hear.
Uh-huh.
What are men trying to say when they use that word?
When
What
they
do
use
you
the word
want us to hear?
of submission.
Hmm.
Um, if you are in a personal development space, I say the biggest portion of that, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier with regard to intimacy, right?
Yeah.
And just understand that the word intimacy for me stands for into me you see. And
Yes.
so men have to also look inside of themselves and have an
Yes.
understanding of purpose first and foremost. Okay, kind of hard to request your woman to submit or want that level of submission when you have not even submitted to yourself and or before
Right.
God or whoever your deity is. But your purpose in life, that's a submission for you to walk down that area.
Right.
So now, Donnie, you can see me submitting to myself taking this walk, right?
Yeah.
And now, I meet you and oh my goodness, I love you. So now here's the thing, I have to submit inside of my emotions to be able to communicate with you, right? And so
Mm,
then I also have to, walk inside of obviously the physical sits there, right? Of the
right.
intimacy, right? So you got the spirit, and then it's there's the the communication of us back and forth. And
Yeah.
so that is what we want.
Yes.
That's not what we say, because
Got you.
we were
Okay.
built to be forward, tough, and just don't cry and not express our
Yeah.
emotions.
Yeah.
So we're not able to say, "Hey," which is intellectual, intimacy, right? Hey, I'm starting this business, and I really kind of want you. You don't have to do nothing; just kind of like be there and kind of talk to me and let me
Oh,
bounce ideas off of you, and kind of
yes.
if I'm jacked up, just kind of rub my bald head. You know what I'm saying? Just
Yes.
personally, I had to grow through that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I didn't. But more, I blues clues it,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm speaking to the gentleman right now. You can't blues clues the situation and just
Right.
think that, okay, she's just gonna magically, deliciously know that, okay, you're walking down this path. So you want her to kind of, I don't care whether be your secretary or be your, be the financier or be the VP or whatever. She doesn't know that. And
That
you have to share
that
that
has
information
no
with her
clue.
and
None.
give her an opportunity of signing up for it. So this is what we mean,
Yeah.
but that is not what we say. And there's
Oh,
there's some leaps and bounds that we need to grow in that area of being able to be intimate with ourselves
yes.
first and foremost, and then
Yes.
have those check-in conversations
Yes.
of, hey, I've been dealing with this business for the past 6 months, and dude, you ain't say cat, dog, whatever case
And
it be,
that's another
what it is.
thing.
Hey,
Be
man, that hurt my
interested.
feelings. Let's talk about this, because
Yes.
I kind of want you to be my cheerleader on the side,
Yes.
or,
Oh,
or manage the ledger, whatever, and then let her sign up for it or not,
yeah.
and then you can make your decision from there.
That's
So
right.
that's to answer your question. That's what we're trying to say, but we don't do a good job in it.
Right. And you know what? It doesn't cost anything to be somebody's cheerleader.
Mm.
Why,
That's
why,
that's for
why
the words
can't
of
we be each
affirmation
other's
people right there. Shout out to
biggest?
the words of affirmation. Love language people.
Well, you know what hit me while you were talking because you flow so well. And I know that I'm passionate about, whatever it is I bring to this table. I
Hmm.
did a lot of work on myself before I got married,
Come on,
and I'm still doing work on
that's
myself.
submission to
I
self.
still have to find myself going. We were, man, this is going to be a therapy session for me. We weren't really talking about the sales side because I already know there's other areas that he's way better in than sales. That's my gig. But as our company has grown, I've talked more about leadership.
Right,
Okay.
right.
And so we were talking about leading in his own way. and him finding his own voice in the leadership of the company and stuff like that. And I said, it's neat because instead of yelling and screaming about it, I don't do that. I just don't,
Right.
and I realize it's because I know that if that's what he wants to do, he'll do it. And then if he doesn't, it's okay, because that's not what he signed up for. He signed up to love me, to support me, and to be a great husband, be a great father and stuff like that. But I literally come up with 50 bazillion ideas a day sometimes.
Come on, bazillion.
But yet I'll be like, well, you don't even understand what we're trying to do here. And he's like, I thought you were doing something else last week. You know what I mean?
Right. And
it's still the same company, but I'll have an idea about this and an idea about that. These ideas come to me, but just because they came to me doesn't mean they're his. You know what I mean?
Right.
Sometimes I have to pull back and go, wait a minute, Donnie, you got some nobody would be able to follow you where you're going right now, because you're all over the place. And so then I have to be honest with myself and go, wait a minute, am I being clear? Does he have a clear idea of what I'm talking about?
Right.
Could I write down in a paragraph exactly what I'm talking about? And a lot of times when I'm frustrated, believe it or not, I can't even put it in a paragraph.
But that just kind of goes back to submission of self. And so I think that's so important. And I think, the glaring piece, and I just love, and I'm going to hit these bullet points, and then we got to get out of here real quickly, because what you said with regard to just from some of my single folks is just, that mentorship, submitting in that area, the vulnerability, and believing in what you're seing and submitting to that and saying, it's time for me to exit stage left versus just staying there. And overall, just having a submission to self. I think that for those that are in that single space, and even those that are married, I mean, you got to hit the reset button. How are you submitting to yourself? First and foremost, understanding what direction that you're going in, and then that allows you to lead, and it allows you to follow as well.
And also know the submission sometimes means support. It doesn't have.
You want to go another hour,
and I don't. Gonna go another hour, but I think sometimes we have to change language a little bit,
right,
so that we can be understood.
Doni Jones live. I need you to tell them right now. I absolutely love this lady right here. Please give them. I give them the commercial. Where can they find you? Where they can find your
Jones
book?
Live. You got to spell it. You got to spell it with 4 letters, DONI, Doni Jones Live. You can also hook up with me on Amazon to get my book, Doni Jones. And the name of the book is From Failure to Fabulous. And I actually got a couple chapters in there where I talk about my relationship. And then, of course, my tree service is Don's Tree Service. That's donstree.com. If you're in the ATL, 770-413-TREE. That's 770-413-TREE. If it ain't Don's Tree Service, it ain't me. So
come on. And you might see her on the billboard on 285 over there by La Vista Road.
Yep.
I know exactly where it is. I know at least that's where I see. I'm just like, hey, look at Donnie on that billboard, like, 50 feet long in the air. Look at her.
But I would love for your people to go to YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel too. We are really focusing on building that platform. Obviously, you can hit my podcast up on Spotify, iTunes, but we want to go ahead and hook up this YouTube and just get the word out to people, because a lot of my mature people ain't really up on iTunes yet, but they do some YouTube. So
submit to the iTunes. Okay, you guys submit to iTunes.
iTunes and Spotify and all that kind of stuff. Elam, thank you so much for the opportunity. Seriously, anytime you and I get a chance to talk, it's going to be a good time. And I got a feeling that we're going to hear from some people whose lives we've changed just by them waking up and going, oh, I do that, don't I, sometimes?
Coming in hot. Thank you so much again. And this is the Understanding a Man podcast. Thank you so much. Y'all might look up and see a part 2 on this, but we're going to be